Do us a quick favor, guys. Hit the follow, subscribe button. Share this with someone who would benefit from it. And help us grow, as the more we grow, the better the episodes we'll get. Thanks, guys, for helping us. And let's get into the episode. Welcome back to this episode of SCULPTED podcast. Today, we have got a bit of a different one. Hedonism. Now, I don't even know how to pronounce it properly. I think it's hedonism. I've heard people say hedonism, but I would pronounce it hedonism. Don't know if that doesn't even sound right to me. I'm not too sure. Hedonism. We'll see. Correct me if I'm wrong. Why do I want to talk about this? Because it's very prevalent in today's society. Now, I'm not a philosopher. I am not a scholar. I am not extremely well educated. I am not, the people's savior. I am, as I think Aristotle had, he had someone who would literally just tell him, "You are merely a man," and that is where I'm at. I'm not higher than anyone. I'm not lower than. I probably would be lower than me, but saying that would then devalue my point of me being higher than people. So wherever I am, I'm not saying that what I'm saying is correct, but I do have my 2 cents. And I think that whenever I do a video like this, I do try and come with receipts. That's why I've got my MacBook in front of me. I do think that my receipts are valid, but of course, some of the things that I'll say are wrong. Actually, an episode that I want to do is 2 truths, 1 lie. So what it would be is I essentially have an episode where I have all of these facts in front of me and research in front of me. And by the end of the podcast, there will be 2 things that are proven in truth to the highest degree, because nothing is really proven, but 2 truths, and then there will be 1 lie, and I will tell you at the end of the episode, but you have to guess what the lie would be. And the reason why I want to do that is to emphasize how everything that I say here is to the best of my ability, backed in data and science and research, but there will always be fault to everything that I say. Therefore, it should be taken with a grain of salt, and also it should be taken with another grain of salt, maybe a bit of pepper if you want, because I live an exceptional life. And when I say that, I mean both extremes, because I don't live an average life. I live a really good life sometimes, and then sometimes I may live a really bad life. So take that with a grain of salt. But I come from a point of privilege, and I come from a point of being an exception. So a lot of the things of which I say may not relate to you, but to the exception, they may relate more specifically to. And if you are watching this and it doesn't relate to you, then you may just find the stuff that I say informative, entertaining, or contrary to your own beliefs. Could be thought-provoking. But hedonism. Now, if you've listened to one of my episodes that are controversial before, you would know that I like to have my computer in front of me with a lot of notes and things like that, because, as I said, I don't want to just spit my opinion without validating it or having it well thought out. So, firstly, the definition of hedonism. This little part will be where we delve into the often overlooked realm of everyday hedonism and exploring seemingly harmless behaviours that have become normalised in our daily lives. These behaviours, such as binge watching, excessive social media use, or overindulgence in comfort food, provide instant pleasure, but may have deeper implications of our well-being. We discuss how these behaviours contribute to a culture of immediate gratification, impacting our health and our mental well-being. When I say that, you also probably, if you listened to an episode before, you would know that I don't like talking about the mental well-being or the mental health side, but I honestly just don't have the vocabulary to give you a better word. That's why the sculpted vocab is going to come out one day, because I need to completely create a new vocabulary to where I can put words that replace words like motivation, passion, things like that, because I have all of these things, and this is where I have a massive flaw, right? I don't have the vocabulary to actually articulate some of the things that I want to say, because I am limited by my English, because I have tried to speak more German, and with that I actually spoke more English because I was speaking a very, very low level of English to German speakers who understood English. And yeah, I never actually explicitly learned German, I was just picking it up. So my English vocabulary is vocabulary? I don't even know. There's a lot of flaw in my English language, but anyways, that's a different topic. All right, an example of hedonism. Consider the habit of excessive social media scrolling. Many individuals routinely spend hours each day on social platforms, seeking the instant gratification of likes, comments, and notifications. This behavior, while seemingly innocent, can contribute to a cycle of dependency on external validation and comparison, or just that dependency on instant gratification and dopamine hits. Now, imagine social media as a buffet where each post, like, or comment represents a tempting dish. You know, in front of you, you got all these brilliant foods at a buffet. The more we indulge, the more we crave. And that is literally what sugar does. Sugar is, you have a little bit, you want to have more. Now, with my eating disorder, I know that. I'm very aware of that, and I see that in real time. So that comes to an endless cycle of consumption. Now, while each serving offers momentary pleasure, the constant buffet can lead to the overconsumption, neglecting our health. And this is the same with social media. When you take these dishes, when you take the likes, comments, whatever it is, and you continue to indulge in it, you don't actually see that's the thing with social media. You don't actually see where the damage is, because one, it may be innocent at a very low level, but because we consume so much of it, even if it is, let's say, if we're rating it at a scale of 1 to 10 out of badness, even if it is a 0.1, we consume so much of it every single day that 0.1 then becomes a 10 every single day. So then we're distracting ourselves by 10 every single day if we're valuing your life in a score of 100. And this is the problem. So we don't see this is the same with nutrition, and that's why this analogy serves valid, because the more you eat, the only cue that we have that is stopping us from eating again is one, of course, your hormones, but then physically you feel it. With social media, you don't really feel that. You don't feel like you need to stop. So you keep going for more because it is just so instantly gratifying. Now, shallow fulfillment. Excessive social media use may provide momentary pleasure, but it often leads to shallow and fleeting fulfillment. The constant need for external validation may hinder the development of deeper, more meaningful connections and experiences. The comparison trap. The culture of immediate gratification on social media fosters a comparison trap where individuals measure their own worth based on others' curated online lives. This can contribute to feelings of inadequacy, anxiety, and the distorted sense of reality. Me personally, I'm probably not the person to speak about when it comes to social media comparison, because of course, I will compare myself to people on social media, but I don't obsess over it that much, because, and maybe this is, as a guy, maybe more relevant. I don't think guys typically find jealousy in other guys too often. I'll look at someone and say, oh, he's got a great physique, or whatever it is, right? I will. I'm a victim of that, of course, but I don't necessarily obsess over that too much. I think other people will more than others, so I'm probably not the right person to speak on the comparison trap. But yeah, impact on your mental state. So continuous engagement in hedonistic behaviors such as excessive social media use may contribute to mental health issues like anxiety and depression. the pursuit of instant pleasure can overshadow the importance of long-term well-being and personal growth. Now, the big part for me, I think, is actually the desensitization and normalization of it. Now, why that's important? In its most basic term, if you do one thing, you're more likely to do it again. The best predictor of the future is the past. So if you have never done something in your life, the best predictor would be that you're probably not going to do it again. If you do something once, the best predictor is that you'll probably do it again because you've done something. Now, that's a very generic rule, and of course, that's not going to be the case always. It's much more grey than black and white in this sense, but I would rather live in the black and whites here. So the subtle ways in which the normalization of hedonistic behaviours in media and popular culture can lead to desensitization, we can explore how frequent exposure to depictions of hedonistic lifestyles in movies, TV shows, and advertisements may desensitize individuals to potential consequences of these behaviours. Additionally, we discuss the role of social comparison in fueling hedonistic desires by presenting idealized and often unrealistic portrayals of pleasure seeking. So, some examples. Movies and TV shows. Consider popular films or TV series that portray characters engaging in excessive and consequence-free hedonistic activities such as endless parties, substance abuse, or reckless behavior. Very common. I think that pretty much every single rating above PG means that there is some sort of hedonistic behavior. I'm pretty sure that's exactly what the PG R ratings, whatever that system is, MA. Is that an Australian? No, that probably isn't an Australian thing. I'm just thinking if that's just my ignorance. But essentially, the age rating and restriction on movies and whatnot, pretty sure anything above PG means that it does have some form of, you could say, degeneracy or hedonism. Advertisements. So advertisements that maybe glamorize hedonistic consumption, or let's say are presenting products as gateways to instant pleasure without highlighting potential negative outcomes. So this can happen. It's maybe less frequent than the TV shows and whatnot. And it's also not explicitly just in TV shows or movies. It's in YouTube videos. It's in the music that we may listen to. It's in all of these different things. But yeah, it's... And you may think, Nick, no, I watch a movie and it doesn't make me do it. And I'll say, valid. It might not. It might not. And the desensitization isn't necessarily by example. For some people, it will be by example. For me, it's not by example. I can watch these degenerate kind of things and not do it myself. But that's got to do with my values as a person. And knowing that I will never do that because I know desensitization is a thing, right? So if I was to indulge or act in any of those things, then it would lead to further of that action. It's not just going to be a one-off. So, and don't get me wrong, it will be a one-off for some people, but a general assumption would be that if you do it once, you're probably going to do it again. And even if you don't do it again, you're probably going to have a harder time to stop you from doing it again because you know that you've done it before. So, thinking about an analogy for you. So, imagine media and popular culture as a kaleidoscope of hedonistic images and narratives. The continuous rotation of these representations create a distorted view of reality, blurring the lines between fantasy and actual consequences. And over time, the repeated exposure may desensitize individuals to the potential risks associated with hedonistic behaviors. Now, that is assuming that this person is completely malleable, someone who doesn't have any standards, morals, or people helping them in their lives, right? Someone who's extremely malleable. These types of behaviors really desensitize someone, and it creates a sense of normalization. And I have a massive problem with people saying radical acceptance and radical normalization of things, because when you stand for everything, you stand for nothing. And of course, the analogy that I gave, as I said, is only really true for malleable people. And it's very rare that you will have a completely malleable person. There will be many, many different sources of, you could say, input many different sources of input because we are so media driven, we are so connection driven. So it's very rare that there will be someone who is completely malleable. But as a general rule of thumb, desensitization and normalization is not a good thing. And I prefer to be more black and white in this situation. I know that it's not. I'm very aware that it's not. But I prefer to walk that line on the edge of caution. Because what I gain from doing these hedonistic things probably will never outweigh the consequence of continuing to do these things. So let's say if I was to drink alcohol once, is it that good that I run the risk of being an alcoholic? Probably not. I don't think that one drink of alcohol is truly that good that I run the risk of ruining my life through alcohol. To me, that's pretty simple. One drink? No, I'll never drink. It's the same with everything else. That's why I am so black and white on this. Why I think it's a concern for normalizing all these things is because normalization of hedonistic behaviors in media may convey the message that excessive pleasure seeking is not only acceptable but also the norm. This normalization can contribute to a culture that values immediate gratification over thoughtful consideration and consequences. Now, a lot of people in the social media world will talk about all these different things of how media is purposely getting people to indulge in these behaviors. Now, there may be truth, but I'm not the right person to speak on that. But what I will say is that hedonism and these degenerate things actually are promoted because it's profitable. Because it is profitable. And expanding on that, why is it profitable? Okay. When people make something normalized and people get behind it, then the odd one out will naturally conform. And the reason why people will grab or grip toward it is because it is gratifying. It's cheap gratification. It's something that comes without earning it. And I understand why people would naturally go to something. If I was to give you $2,000 for every time you asked for it, then over time you would be completely desensitized and you wouldn't expect to work for your money because you get $2,000 anyways. If I was to say, okay, you're looking for a job, but you still get $2,000 every single day, and you come to me and I say, I'm going to pay you $1,000 every single week. Are you going to tell me that you're going to take that job? No way, because you get $2,000 a day for doing nothing, right? So this desensitization and normalization is destructive. Desensitization to risks. Frequent exposure to hedonistic depictions may desensitize individuals to the potential risks and downside of these behaviors. This desensitization can reduce the perceived severity of consequences, making individuals more likely to engage in hedonistic activities without fully considering implications. The social comparison pressure. The portrayal of idolized hedonistic lifestyles in media can fuel social comparison. Individuals may feel pressure to emulate these lifestyles, believing that engaging in similar behaviors will lead to comparable level of happiness and fulfillment. Now, this, honestly, I think a lot of people talk about, but I don't see it happening too often. That, you listen to one Tekashi 6ix9ine music video and all of a sudden you're in a gang. I don't think that's, the natural sequence of events. But what it does do, and this is scientifically speaking, right? If you were to never see anything on Tekashi 6ix9ine, and then you've got someone who is listening and consuming Tekashi 6ix9ine content, the likelihood of either person joining a gang or doing whatever Tekashi 6ix9ine promotes, which person is more likely? Even if it's this guy is 0% because he doesn't even know what a gang or anything is like that. So this guy is 0% because he's not even familiar with anything. Assuming this guy only listens to Tekashi 6ix9ine, he's been living in a box his whole life since he was born. He's only been listening to Tekashi 6ix9ine. This guy isn't going to do it. But the guy who does, even if he let's say, knows that he will never do it, it's still higher than this guy, because this normalization and desensitization means that this guy actually knows that it's there. He's probably more okay with it. And, maybe he might. Even if he doesn't think that he will, there's still the might. And this is such an extreme example that will never happen. But you can also understand now, maybe I would like to think that you understand why I prefer to be more black and white on it. Because I don't think that the risk and reward is there, truly. Profitability of hedonism. So, the economic dimensions of hedonism, I think I just said hedonism, of hedonism, delving into industries that thrive on promoting pleasure and indulgence. Marketing and advertising strategically capitalizes on innate hedonistic tendencies to sell products and experiences. We also engage in discussions about ethical considerations surrounding the profitability of hedonistic behaviors in the market. So, examples, industries. Sectors such as hospitality industry, such as luxury resorts, high-end dining, entertainment, nightlife, premium experiences, let's say the wellness industry, spa retreats, indulgent self-care products. They all are promoting instant gratification. And now I don't have an issue. There's a time and place for specific things as well. But the lifestyle that is promoted, to a degree, is desensitizing. I am completely desensitized to the thing. Now, that means that I'm more likely to do them? Yes, definitely. I just said that. Because there's probably a guy who doesn't even conceptualize these things, and he will never know. Just like in the future, there will be even more hedonistic things in the future that I don't even know about that will happen, but I can't even conceptualize them right now. That's going to happen one day. Just like when we were, in the cavemen, telling them that they could, I don't know, do a roller coaster. Now, I love roller coasters, but telling them that they could, and that's also instant gratification. Go on a roller coaster, that is instant gratification, but that's a time and a place for it. I don't go riding a roller coaster every day, but I'm also not saying it's bad. But telling a caveman that, oh yeah, we could just go on a roller coaster. It's just his time, go on a roller coaster. He wouldn't even know what that meant. He couldn't conceptualize what that gratification feels like. So that's what I'm saying, right? So even though we may not see this as being something that is promoting this hedonism, again, not saying that everything is hedonistic. I'm not saying that everything that feels good or is nice to do is hedonistic. I'm not saying that. But I'm saying that desensitization to enjoying and too much of it can then lead to doing or be fixated on just. I think that a few things just cut out. I hope that I might be able to retrieve this audio. But what I was saying is that I'm not saying that anything of these things is bad to promote, like the luxury resorts, the high-end dining, the nightlife, the premium experiences, whatever those are. I'm not saying that they're bad. There will be a time and place for them, if that is something of which you feel like isn't destructive, but maybe you're getting enjoyment out of. I'm not for living a boring life, but I'm also not for living a life full of instant gratification. I want to work for it, and I hope that I spoke about this before the audio got cut, but I made an example of someone who works who gets gifted $2,000 every single day. That person who gets gifted $2,000 every single day will never work for $1,000 a week. They'll never work because of the desensitization of gratification that they get, knowing that they can do nothing and get rewarded for it. It will promote a lazy lifestyle. Now that's never going to happen. You're never going to have a situation where that happens, but could have similar, actually. OnlyFans could probably be somewhere similar on there. But essentially, I'm not here to villainize all of these things that are fun to do or are nice to do. I'm not trying to say that. But what it does do is it does desensitize. The more we indulge in it, these entertaining things, these fun things of which provide us this instant gratification, the more we engage and indulge in it, then the more likely we are to continue to do this and seek them more often. And when I talk about instant gratification, the example that I gave before about someone who has never even conceptualized these instant gratifying things and where we are now, there will be in the future people who are going through instant gratifying things at an even higher level than we are now. The most gratifying thing that humans can probably do, no, I can't even say that because it's going to be completely individual, but conceptualizing what is instant gratification and what is hedonistic is, to a caveman thousands of years ago, he couldn't even conceptualize anything of what we have now. So if I was to say to a caveman, let's go on a roller coaster and let's have fun, they just wouldn't understand any of that because it's out of their perception. They just can't conceptualize it. And I don't want you to also understand me saying now roller coasters are bad and you ride one roller coaster and then you're addicted to drugs. That's not what I'm saying. That's definitely not what I'm saying. But I'm saying that if you get into the mindset of abundance and you get into the mindset of always seeking that next, let's say the next hit of dopamine or instant gratification or hedonism, then it leads to seeking it more and more and more. And that's what the analogy was with the buffet, right? If you don't see the repercussions for it, then you should continue to do it. If you don't see any repercussions for doing it, then you should continue to do it. But what we know is that the more you do these types of things, the worse it is for you as an individual, right? Proof, okay, sure. If you were to spend all of your days, let's say you started off going to a theme park once a week. You go to a theme park once a week and you're like, oh, this is brilliant, you know? Now, okay, also, this is such an outlandish example. Probably has never happened. It may have happened, but it's not going to happen too often. This is just an example of how this can work, right? If you were to go to a theme park once a week for a month, eventually you're desensitized and your next level of dopamine, you got to do more, okay? That more then becomes, okay, you go twice a week, or maybe you go to a different theme park now. Then that next month, you want to do more and more and more, right? Because you're not seeing any repercussions for it. Maybe, you know, maybe you have to take one less shift a week, but it's not too bad. And it continues. And you know what? Maybe roller coasters aren't cutting it anymore. Maybe you have to go parties. Maybe you have to go drugs, substances, whatever it is. That continues to grow because you get desensitized to it. You get normalized. And the thing that hedonism promotes is more of bad, but you don't see the repercussions for it typically. And now, again, this is such an extreme example. Most people would probably realize that after the second time they go to the roller coaster or the theme park in a week, they'd probably cut back on it because they know that, you know, well, if I continue to seek more and more, I will have to sacrifice more and more to seek more and more. What I mean by that is, you know, if you were to go to a roller coaster theme park every week twice, then you have to give up that shift. Okay, the more and more you do it, the more and more shifts you have to give up. Therefore, there is a natural selection process of stopping that from getting too extreme because, you know, you've got to eat, you've got to sleep, you've got to do something, right? So that sacrifice will probably never get too far, but there will be instances where that does get too far. Not to say that, you know, you go to one theme park once, you're going to be there. I'm not saying that at all. What I am saying is that when you are promoting a lifestyle of abundance and instant gratification and hedonism, then going down that path, I would try and stay as far away from it as possible. It's just not going to be positive. It's not going to be building you up. It's going to be tearing you down. If we're thinking about sculpting, essentially, you got a sculptor who's putting even more and more things on top of that sculpture. Like, why are you adding more and more onto it? You want to refine it. You want to make it so it's a beautiful sculpture at the end of it. Why do you keep on adding like layers and layers to this external shell that has nothing to do with the beautiful sculpture waiting inside of it? All right. Marketing strategies. So there will be specific market strategies that do promote and leverage hedonistic stuff that appeals to create desire and drive consumer behavior, right? McDonald's, you know, all of these other things that, I'm not saying that McDonald's is hedonistic, but what I'm saying is that it does give you that instant gratification, right? So because it's profitable, it will be marketed. And that's what capitalism is, right? I can't say that it's right or wrong because I don't know enough about politics or whatever, but essentially capitalism gives people the free will to do so, to promote a hedonistic lifestyle, and all we can say is, okay, that's not for me, or maybe it is for me, or whatever it is, right? If you're to promote the hedonistic lifestyle and that's not for you, or if someone was to do that and you say that's not for you, but you then see someone who's promoting the sculpted lifestyle or whatever that lifestyle is that you want, and you go to that, then you've got to accept the bad and accept the good, because living with just the good or the perceived good is communism. So unless you want that, go for it. Now, the pleasure marketplace. Imagine the market as a bustling marketplace where pleasure and indulgence are showcased as premium commodities. Various vendors representing the different industries compete to present their products and experiences as gateways to heightened pleasure. The more enticing the presentation, the greater the demand. Essentially, the competition marketplace is, right, if we were to use this analogy in more depth, if you're going from one stall to the other and you've only got a budget of $100 because that's what your day is, right? Maybe, let's say $24. You only had $24 to spend at this marketplace. Each dollar represents 1 hour of your time. If you only had 24 hours, you gotta choose the best stall at the marketplace. You're not going to spend it on the McDonald's because there's X, Y, and Z over the corner for $16, and the McDonald's was $8, or the McDonald's is $17. I'm going to go to the best thing over in the corner. So it's profitable, and this is why hedonism is getting, I think, even worse. All right. Consumer vulnerability. The deliberate use of hedonistic appeals in marketing can exploit consumer vulnerabilities by tapping into innate desires for pleasure and enjoyment. This manipulation can lead to individuals making impulsive and potentially detrimental choices. The creation of artificial needs. The profitability of hedonism often involves creating an Hey Siri, how do you pronounce? I can't even say that. I can hear it in my head. Perpetuating. I think that's right. Perpetuating artificial needs for pleasure-centric products and experiences. This can contribute to a culture of overconsumption and materialism where the pursuit of pleasure is prioritized over genuine well-being. Societal impact. The profitability of hedonism can shape societal values and norms, potentially reinforcing the idea that happiness and fulfillment are directly linked to the consumption of specific products or experiences. This can contribute to the materialistic culture that places undue emphasis on external sources of pleasure. This is a fact, right? I'm pretty sure there's a stat that most people with most people with a car can't even afford it. Now, if you go even into low socioeconomic places, it's like more people spend money on luxury products than... there is a stat on it about how the income bracket of people who spend their money on luxury items, it's like not what you'd expect. It's like people in the very average income spend the most money on luxury items, and the people at the very top just spend barely anything. And that's kind of the societal impact there. So, ethical dilemmas. The ethical implications of profiting from hedonistic behaviours raise questions about the responsibility of industries and marketers. Should there be limits on how pleasure is marketed, especially when it involves potentially harmful substances or activities? Now, this is the moral dilemma, right? This is what I was talking about with capitalism and things like that. Now, again, I'm not the person to speak on that. I barely know what capitalism is. Pretty sure I learned that word a year ago. But is it the right thing? Is it not? Are we living in a society where that naturally will be promoted because it's profitable and because it's a free marketplace? Yeah, we have to accept it to a degree. We do have to accept it because we also then promote the extreme opposite, which is the right, what I would believe as the right thing. Therefore, we have to also be okay with the promotion of the wrong thing. And that's the world we live in. Is it the right? Is it the wrong? Don't listen to me. Maybe, in the future I'll get a political guy to come on to the SCULPTED podcast, but right now I'm nowhere to give advice on. All right. So social media and the hedonistic spiral. The influential role of social media in perpetuating hedonistic cycles. We delve into the mechanisms that drive constant pursuit of validation through likes, comments, shares, and social platforms. Additionally, we analyze how virtual hedonism can have tangible effects on real-world behaviors, shaping individuals' perceptions and actions beyond the digital realm. So, when we talk about like things such as comments, likes, shares on social platforms, I think what you do have to think about is their number one goal is to keep you on their platform and to create this sense that you are missing out or that you need more. And you have to also realize that likes, comments, shares are literally psychologically structured through innate human instinct to create this sense that you need to like because it's a validation, comment because maybe it's uplifting, maybe it's also the exact opposite, maybe you're what's the word when you're sharing something that is showing an insecurity or whatever from within. I can't remember, but comments, shares, sharing is like, there's nothing inherently wrong with sharing things. Like if I see a funny video that I want to share with my mom, as much as I'm seeking validation for her, it's also just like a nice thing because it's like, I want my mom to share this joy with me. There's nothing inherently wrong with sharing joy with others, but what that does is that you are then relying on validation. And I don't have a massive problem with it, but in the past, I've had to leave group chats because I've seen myself. I send like, this is when I didn't have Instagram downloaded. Sorry, this is when I had Instagram downloaded on my phone. I don't have Instagram downloaded on my phone anymore. I have it on my Mac, because it's much harder to actually, I don't even know if there are Reels on the Mac, but you can't get lost on your MacBook, doing Reels. And if you do, it's harder to. There's a lot more friction. But anyways, I had to leave group chats because I realized that I would like almost be offended. Not like I would be like, I wouldn't have any distaste towards anyone, but I would see myself thinking like, oh, they didn't like the meme that I sent. Or I don't feel too great about that. So I would see this and I would think, why is it that I'm using this validation as a metric for me to see my self-worth? And I realized that was just not good for me. And the reason why it was addicting is because, and it's got to do with, all these things about humans, how we adapted over time, why it's important, why validation is important. Validation is such an innate human attribute that we needed. And, you'll hear people saying, like, and I don't disagree with it, but it's just a common thing that you hear these days with a lot of people who talk about, like, the evolution and things like that, where, in your tribe, if you were to be ostracized by them, it meant death. So the reason why we seek validation within our own tribe, whatever your tribe is because we want to be accepted. We want to have validation to know that we belong. All right, validation metrics. Quantifiable metrics such as likes, shares, and comments are virtual forms of validation on social media platforms, right? So that you have no measurement other than a like count. Now, what does that mean? What does 1 million likes mean truly compared to 0 likes? Now, of course, there is monetary gain and all of these things, which is decent, but what does it truly mean? Now, there will be a lot of people who promote these hedonistic lifestyles on social media, and this is where it comes with the value, right? Who am I to tell them that they're doing anything wrong? Who am I to then say that they're being damaging? I'm not that guy. I can say what I think, but I'm not the guy to tell someone that they're doing something wrong. I will have my opinion, and I'll probably will steer far, far away from it. So a quick little break. Camera ran out of storage. So I was saying, influencers. I'm not saying they're all bad, but naturally, they will probably tend to promote a lifestyle of which leans towards hedonism because they actually get rewarded for it through financial incentives, right? Because it is entertaining and it's enjoyable to watch. It's enjoyable to watch others do hedonistic things of which we bear no repercussions for. it's a vessel for us to view it, and they actually get incentivized to do those things, where someone who has nothing to live for, they aren't incentivized to do something like that other than to feel good. Where someone gets to get paid to feel good, unless you get paid to feel good, I wouldn't suggest doing it. I would say earn your feeling. I think that's a very good rule of thumb. Earn the feeling of satisfaction. Earn that. Don't buy it. Don't get it from instant gratification. Earn it. Also, a bit of disclosure on that. It would be hypocritical for me to say that I don't watch TikTok on a Sunday. I watch TikTok on a Sunday because of my rest days. I am a very big advocate for absolutely having the worst rest day of your life on a Sunday, so that you guilt trip your way into having a really good week. Now, that's how I do it. I may be an exception here. It may not be the best way of doing it, but I find that for myself, when I really, really guilt trip myself into having a really good 6 days and then resting on the 7th through, scrolling on TikTok or wasting a heap of time on the Sunday, I find that then makes my 6 days that I have really, really productive. But again, it would be hypocritical for me not to admit that, but also that means that I'm not on TikTok on any other day of the week, ever. I literally delete it and re-download it on a Sunday. All right, the hedonistic paradox. So, the nature of hedonism, exploring how the relentless pursuit of pleasure can often lead to unexpected dissatisfaction. So, the intricacies of immediate gratification versus the long-term well-being of individuals and society. So, shedding light on the inherent contradictions within the hedonistic philosophies. So, consumerism and materialism. The constant quest for material pleasure and possessions driven by consumerism may provide fleeting happiness, but often leads to a sense of emptiness and unfulfillment in the long run. Imagine a traveler in the vast desert constantly pursuing a distant oasis, promising pleasure and satisfaction. However, as the traveler gets closer, the oasis remains just out of reach, revealing itself to be a mirage. Similarly, the pursuit of immediate pleasure can create an illusion of fulfillment, only to dissipate upon closer inspection, leaving a sense of long-going. I guess it's essentially what a mirage is, right? You could say that consumerism and materialism is a mirage. It's a good analogy. Short-term gratification versus long-term gratification. The paradox lies in the tension between immediate gratification and the lasting fulfillment that comes from meaningful experiences and sustainable well-being. The pursuit of fleeting pleasures often detracts from the cultivation of deeper, more enduring sources of satisfaction. Neglect of a holistic well-being. So, hedonistic pursuits, when divorced from a holistic view of well-being, may undermine long-term mental, emotional, and physical health. Prioritizing immediate pleasure can overshadow the importance of building resilience, meaningful relationships, and personal growth. Contribution to discontent. Individuals or societies hyper-focused on hedonistic goals may find themselves in a cycle of perpetual dissatisfaction. As desires for pleasure are met, new desires emerge, creating a continuous loop that can leave individuals feeling unfulfilled despite their achievements. Now, where you can draw parallels to is, I have a dissatisfaction through the results of which I garner. That pursuit, you could argue, is more beneficial than the emptiness that you may feel from a hedonistic pursuit and trying to find more. So the parallel is, the more I achieve in sports, the more desensitized I get, the more it becomes normalized, the more I want. Now, that is culturally, ethically, and morally accepted, that these things are better than excelling in another area of life. But to say that me as a person right now who is excelling and having that same parallel to a positive thing, a so-called positive thing, who am I to say it is a positive thing? It's just culturally accepted that is a positive thing, and it's also culturally unaccepted that hedonism and that pursuit is unaccepted, right? But it would be ignorant for me to say that the life that I'm living right now, I could never live that other life. I could 100% live that life, because the same tendencies and that same parallel that I share with becoming the best version of myself, I could also share that with becoming the worst version of myself very easily. And arguably that one is more rewarding because there's much more instant gratification. I have to work for this much harder, but there's also a lot of beauty in that, because then you can be proud of that beautiful sculpture at the end of your journey, right? Here, are you proud of a bunch of bricks? Probably not. All right. Responsibility of media and advertisers. So, is there responsibility of media and advertisers to actually mediate this hedonistic life? So, the ethical dimensions of how these influential entities contribute to the promotion of pleasure-seeking behaviours and the responsibility they bear in influencing cultural attitudes towards hedonism. So, advertising campaigns, specific advertising campaigns that either responsibly promote products and experience or exploit hedonistic appeals for profit. There will be that. There are that. Media portrayals. Media content, including movies, TV shows, and online platforms, either glorify or critique hedonistic lifestyles and values. So, imagine media, advertisers, and content creators as architects shaping the cultural landscape. The structures they build, representing messages, images, and narratives, they have a profound impact on societal values. Responsible construction results in a balanced and resilient cultural landscape, while haphazard building can lead to instability and social disarray. The reason why you can say that these three things that I mentioned, the influencers, the advertisers, and the media, it's because they do have a big influence on day-to-day life. And that's not just because they're very popular, but they're influential, right? The reason why I said I can say the lifestyle that I chose to go down is right and the other one is wrong is because of the culture. It's because of the media, the advertisers, and the content creators. Now, explicitly, it may not be them because we live in a very different world now. But the reason why that lifestyle is seen as good is because a few hundred years ago, when people were doing the hedonistic things, they were able to identify that as bad, this is good, our culture will promote this and neglect this. Now, going off that logic, we can also say that they neglect this and promote this because we have both of them in today's society. And I think that we are leaning towards having a better society, but I also do see people leaning towards a worse society. So I don't know where this will take us because I'm not experienced as a historian, but I do see that I think there is more hedonistic things being promoted. Would that then have an opposite reaction to then in the future more positive things being, or what I see as positive things being reinforced potentially? I don't know how this historically would go, but it's something to think about. I think that's where I'll wrap it up. I don't want to go into too much more depth because I'm aware about how long this episode has been, but what I want to leave you with is just the awareness. I believe that the black and white approach is better because the example that I gave, right, if you've got a kid who was just in a box his whole life, he was literally from birth to now in this box and he saw nothing, then either he would figure something out himself to do that's probably constructive or destructive, but the things of which are destructive would literally no longer allow him to live. So he's only going to do things of which are constructive. So if you were to make your life as constructive as possible and leave no chance for making it destructive, what would you do? How would you act and where would you go? Would you be black and white or would you be in the middle? Would you drink alcohol once and never do it again? Or would you never drink alcohol and never be with it? Or would you drink alcohol and then become an alcoholic? I don't know. It's very grey. It's very grey, but I would rather be more black and white because I leave no chance. I leave no chance for there to be any grey. I don't want the grey. I prefer to be in these black and white polars because I know that life is more grey. Life is more grey. So how do I stay away from that? I gotta live in these black and whites. And now, I can't give you an informed opinion on being too black and white. I know that I am very black and white. I have also been punished for my black and whiteness before. But it's an interesting thing. I think that I would be leaning on the correct side, I think, to being more black and white on these hedonistic things. And I think that the information that I said today should back that. But yeah, I think it's thought-provoking. And I hope you enjoyed this episode, because if you did, I'll catch you on the next one.